Hey everyone, my name is Perry, and welcome back to the cassette phase. So I hope that you all had a nice weekend, and I hope that your holiday season is going great so far. Do you have all of your shopping done? I think that I do. I think that I'm finally done for the most part. But I want to continue on with the holiday themed content today on the channel. And I want to talk about a subject that I've been, wanting to discuss since I started the channel. But I've been kind of hanging on to it until this very specific time of year. And that's malls, shopping malls, and mall culture in the 80s and the 90s, specifically around the holiday shopping season. Now, if you're watching this channel, you probably have some really fond memories of going to the mall in your hometown. Well, as you know, malls served a couple of different purposes back then. First of all, there's the whole retail, shopping, purchasing goods element, which was what they were originally designed for, after all. And speaking of shopping, real quick housekeeping item before I move on. For those of you who watched my catalog video from a few weeks back, where I flipped through a 1989 JCPenney catalog and asked you all to vote on which item I was going to go after. Well, the votes were really close, but the winning item was the Super Mario Brothers and Legend of Zelda pillowcase, and it was close. But it did win, and I'm kind of excited, so I'm going to be trying to track one of those down. So stay tuned and see if I'm able to find one. But back to today's topic. Beyond the pure shopping retail experience, malls became social hubs for the youth of America, and that's mainly what I want to talk about today. So, was going to the mall a big deal for you as a kid back in the 80s and the 90s? And do you feel like doing a little reminiscing? Come hang out. Now, unfortunately, mall culture is something that has kind of fallen by the wayside over the years. And I'm not here to blame online shopping or to lament our society's propensity to gravitate towards all things convenient. Well, maybe I am just a little. But I can clearly remember reaching an age where we could finally go to the mall with our friends without the supervision of our parents. And just how big a deal that was in the coming of age for all 80s and 90s kids. We lived close enough to a mall that I could actually ride my bike there. And my friends and I would oftentimes ride up to that specific mall and lock our bikes up to bike racks that were actually stationed outside the doors to the mall. Using those little combination bike locks that were where the chain was wrapped in like translucent blue plastic. And if you had a few bucks, great, a little spending money. But if you didn't, that was okay too. We just had a lot of fun, walking around and looking at a lot of our favorite stores like Sam Goody, Suncoast Motion Picture Company, Gadzooks, KB Toys, Babbage's, and so many others. And then there would be those exciting and confusing times where you'd see the girl that you liked from school walking around with her friends and having your buddies dare you to go up and talk to her. And usually for me, that resulted in sheepishly walking by, saying hi and just waving without even stopping. And even if you had spent all your money already on an Orange Julius and a pretzel, it was still fun to go into the mall arcade. Ours was called Tilt. And watch the other kids play Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. I can still remember the way that place smelled and the way that it sounded when you walked in. And you could hear those glorious noises from like 3 stores down. Well, at the holidays, the malls took on an entirely different vibe. You obviously still had the sights and sounds of all those great stores. And at our mall, you still had all the plants and the water features and the fountains everywhere. But beyond those things, now you had these big, huge, eye-catching Christmas decorations everywhere you looked. Lights hanging from the ceiling, garlands on all the railings, wreaths and bows everywhere, and of course, Christmas trees. Sometimes one really big Christmas tree, like in a central location. I know at the Galleria down in Dallas, there's like a 3-story tall Christmas tree that's in the middle of an ice skating rink. But beyond the central main Christmas tree, there were usually, dozens of other Christmas trees spread all throughout. in all the department stores, some of the store windows, and it just seemed like in every single nook and cranny of the mall. And when you were a little bit younger, holiday shopping with your parents was a big deal. You'd make a whole day out of it. Maybe you dress a little bit nicer. Maybe you go say hi to Santa and have lunch there. Maybe you spend the whole day shopping, just surrounded by trees and lights and holiday music. And some malls would even have little stages set up. And there'd be like kids' choirs or musical performances, or even like little skits and plays going on. It truly was a hub for people to gather during the holiday season. And I don't know if malls, the way that we experienced them, will ever fully return. We do still have a few malls around us, one of which is actually still really, really busy. But it just doesn't feel the same. Everyone seems to be in a hurry, or they're staring at their phones. They're definitely not being kind and interacting with their neighbors like we used to do back in the day. And we also have a couple of dead malls here in our area. And I'm going to put some footage in of one that we visited not too long ago. And this place was, pretty much abandoned and frozen in time, which was kind of cool, but was also kind of sad at the same time, And the one exception was they did have a Dillard's. And this was an old Dillard's that was still functioning as the only anchor store in the whole place. Now, walking through this Dillard's was like time travel. I mean, if you can ignore all of the modern junk products and clothing everywhere, and just focus on like the flooring and the lighting and all the fixtures, none of that stuff had been updated, which I found to just be so cool. But as awesome as that store was, I left feeling just a little empty, I was kind of hoping that with the recent resurgence of 80s and 90s pop culture and nostalgia, with things like Stranger Things, that we would see like a renaissance in the traditional mall and mall culture. Well, I just haven't seen it, at least not in my area. We may just be a little bit too far beyond those days, unfortunately. But just think, if some investor were to come along and faithfully recreate an 80s mall, with full neon signage and parquet wood flooring in all the department stores, and all the plants and the fountains, and even like retro logos on the storefronts. To me, something like that would be a tourist attraction. I would actually plan a whole vacation around visiting someplace like that. I know that for season 3, I think, of Stranger Things, they did something similar. They recreated an 80s mall, but it was just a small section of one, I believe. So I don't know that we'll ever get the full experience again, but it's fun to think about. So what memories do you have of your local mall when you were a kid? Did it have an arcade? Did it have a movie theater attached to it? If so, what movies did you see there? What was your favorite store? And for the holidays, did it go all out with the holiday decorations like mine did? Let me know. But lastly, I've pieced together a few clips and images from malls at Christmas time in the 80s and the 90s. And hopefully this lets you time travel for a few minutes today, lets you revisit a simpler time and ultimately enhances your holiday spirit. And there we are. So did today's video spark any memories for you? Were you transported back to the golden age of malls at the holidays? If so, consider subscribing. But for now, and as always, relax, enjoy life, and be kind. We'll see you in the next one.